So hopefully we can keep roughly to the agenda timings that we've got.
Yeah.
As far as the AGM business goes, there's the annual directors report, which I'm going to just summarize really quickly. We'll put it on our website by the end of the week, so you can read through it. But quite a lot of the things that are in the annual report are also picked out sort of later on in the agenda as well. So I don't want to spend ages talking about what we've been doing over the last year, but I will spend a few minutes on that. Then we'll have the financial report, which Sam will do. I'm not sure if Sam's here yet, but hopefully he will be by the time it gets to his point on the agenda. Then the interesting bit in terms of potential future directors and the voting. So those are the kind of AGM business bits that we start off with. So I think if I do the director's report right now, very quickly, just to kind of summarize what we've been up to as a network, particularly in terms of the staff and the board members. Obviously, this has been a slightly strange year. We started off really well. We've been growing and we've been growing in visibility. We've been involved in a number of different projects. So we've had funding from those projects, which has helped to support the core of the network as well. So that means it's helped to support both Amelia's position and actually for a while to employ an additional communications manager and also to support David. So it's been great to have those projects, but also to be able to deliver on them, to widen our reach and to engage with different communities around the city. Particularly this year, we've been working on the Warm Homes and Money project, WAM project with CSE, which has been reaching out across the city to different organisations and different individuals. And the Future Proof project, which has been looking at retrofit. And again, that's a CSE project. Our newest project, which we only started once lockdown had kicked in, was a Sonnet project, which is looking at how we engage with community buildings and communities and how we might fund energy efficiency improvements for those in the future. We're still trying to figure out the best way of doing community engagement on that project, but we can certainly talk with the building managers and work out how we might, well, I guess what the buildings need in terms of energy efficiency retrofits. Also, earlier on in this year, because I suppose what I'm talking about is our financial year, so from July last year to June this year primarily, and then sort of kicking on a bit into the last few months. It's been great earlier in the year to be working with the Bristol Energy Innovation team. Obviously, Bristol Energy, now that it's been sold, that whole situation is slightly different, but earlier on in the year, we had a really good working relationship with the Bristol Energy Innovation team, and we managed to do some really good work with them in terms of developing energy champions projects and other community engagement approaches. The Energy Champions is also another area that we've been growing over the last year. That kind of builds on the Replicate project, which is where we trialed that approach initially. But we've been taking it forwards through developing new energy champions and taking on new volunteers and student volunteers as well. Amelia particularly is taking that forwards now. Some of you will probably remember at the conference that we had last year in November, that went really well. We had 140 odd people at that conference. We would have loved to have done it again this year. Obviously that's not possible, but hopefully we can do it again next year. It's such a good way of talking to a bunch of different people and getting new people engaged and getting new voices into the room and kind of sharing ideas. Other notable things in the last year, we were shortlisted for the Best Community Initiative in the annual Regen Awards last year. We didn't win, but it was nice to be shortlisted. We attended the Global Climate Strike back in September of last year. That was an interesting way of talking to particularly young people, students and others, just by having a stall on College Green where the strike was sort of centred. We finally managed to launch our toolkit this year as well. That was something that we were doing with Community Energy England and Bristol City Council. And the toolkit talks about how we've engaged with the City Council and worked really successfully with them. So that was a good thing to get out this year as well.
Yeah.
And I guess behind the scenes, maybe stuff that you guys don't see so much. We've had two excellent coordinators over the last year. Firstly, Caroline Enyon and now Amelia Melville. Both of whom have done and are doing a sterling job of organising and coordinating behind the scenes in terms of organising meetings, organising events like this, sending out communications, both newsletters, tweets, using Facebook, that kind of thing. What else have we done? And obviously the board sits behind the scenes as well. So we've had 8 board members this year, and Jake, who's been a kind of advisory board member. So we're looking forward to seeing who's going to join the board for the next year. And that's probably enough. I mean, I suppose I should also mention Dave in all of this, shouldn't I? How can you not mention Dave and all the sterling work he does for the network in all the different ways? You know, talking to different organizations, securing bits of extra funding, networking, and making sure that we're properly visible. So I think we need to give Dave a little clap here, because he's been doing some great work over this year too. So I guess, yeah, that's a sort of very rapid summary of all the stuff we've been doing over the last year. As I said, you know, COVID has made things slightly different, but, you know, the team's carried on working remotely and carried on engaging and doing what we do. So, yeah. So I suppose the next thing we need to do, if we've got it, is to do the financial report. And I don't know if we have Sam. Amelia?
We do.
We do, excellent. So Sam, if you can do a quick financial summary for the year, that would be great, please.
Yep, certainly. Yeah, this is probably the least exciting bit of the evening, but so I'll keep it quite tight. Although I know there's one or two out there that will like these numbers. So just to run through briefly, our turnover for the financial year, which is covering the period to the end of June 2020, our turnover was £37,547. Most significant amount of that went on our 2 employees, so that was £26,807. We had various other costs, which were including directors, other support, communication support, paying for our accounts, and working with our members. That came to another 14,605. Our office costs were actually reduced as we managed to give up our office before the end of June. So they were down to 2,000, just over 2,000, and other admin costs 3,400. So our total costs for running the organisation, including other groups, actually came to 46,435, and we were left with a surplus of 2,267. So it was a more stable year, which was encouraging. We had a variety of funding sources. I think Caroline's touched on quite a lot of the organisations. So we had the Replicate project, which was particularly Energy Champions. We would work with the WAM project, the conference, which money came from Community Energy England, and Bristol Energy. There's consultancy work with them. We had some from the University of Bristol that helped do our global climate strike activity, and Bristol City Council, and the Sonnet project just started. So we had lots of useful money coming in from different sources. And the other bit I'm really pleased to say is actually a lot of the money we had coming in went out to our partners that we were working with in other organisations. So I think it fulfilled our role as a network, that a lot of the income we had actually was then going out to work with our partners. So that's a very brief summary, and you probably won't remember any of the numbers, but we will be, once we've got our accounts formally signed off, we will distribute them, and you're welcome to contact me for any more details on those.
Okay, that's great, Sam. Thank you very much for that. So I guess if anybody's got any questions in relation to the financial information that Sam's just given, or the kind of summary of the year that I've just given, we've got a few minutes for questions before we move on to the director voting next section of the meeting. So if anybody's got questions, maybe
if you're able to use the hand up function within Zoom, that would be ideal. It's the easiest way to see your hand coming up.
Yes, I was just going to suggest that. That would be great. you could do that. But I don't see any hands up. That's great. So maybe you have no questions. Maybe what we've said is enough and it's informative enough, in which case I'm happy about that and we can move on to the next bit. Yes, great. Let's do that then. So let's move on to the voting for directors and director candidates. So we've got, how many directors have we got standing? 2, 3, 4. We've got 7 directors or 7 candidates for 5 positions on the board. Some people are standing for re-election and we've got a few new people standing as well, which is great. So we need to go through each of those individual candidates just to do their pitches very briefly, just to say who they are and what they might bring to the board before we do the voting. Now, I know some people have voted in advance, which is great. And the people who are eligible to vote are those who are representing member groups. I know Amelia has been trying to find out who the people are who are representing the member groups. And I don't think everybody got back to her, but I think behind the scenes, Amelia and Jen will be managing that process as people cast their votes. Amelia, is there anything else I need to add to that at the moment?
I don't think so. That's, yeah, unless anyone has any questions about that.
Okay, so I think the best thing to do is if I just go through the list of names that are in front of me in the order that they're in front of me and ask each person in turn just to say their few minutes. That seems to make sense. Amelia, you're nodding. Does that make sense? Great, perfect. Let's do that then. So Robert, you're the first person on my list. So Robert, could you do your director pitch, please? And you do need to unmute yourself.
I do. Hi, thank you, Caroline. Yes, so I'm aware I have responsibilities for timing this event, so I will, without further ado, well, I'd like to first of all welcome all board members, and their attempts to re-elect, particularly our new members. Welcome to you. I've been a board member for 2 years, and in that time, I've attended all board and member open meetings, bar one, I think, which I missed due to illness. I've spent a lot of time assisting the excellent project team, David, Caroline Enon, and more recently, Amelia. I've acted as interim coordinator, assisting with our first online or virtual member meeting, which was a blast. I produced and circulated, as part of that role, some Ben news flashes and worked with Rebecca and Caroline to appoint our wonderful, if not new, still fresh coordinator, Amelia. And I think, with a possibility of embarrassing her, just to say she was an excellent appointment that has certainly further strengthened the Ben team. Ben involvement has included so many things. I've loved being part of the organisation, largely supporting David, particularly at events, including chairing an effective, I like to think so, local plan community consultation. Caroline mentioned the student strike. We were there with our garb, talking to a lot of people, helping people get to know Ben and us them. I've attended the Upper Street Community Awards and represented Ben all around the city at so many excellent events. I'm here, my second year into the city, and I just love Bristol and the energy, particularly in the sector. I was involved in the conference, although really only bringing, some money to help support that event, a couple of £1,000, thanks to Professor Martin Parker and the University of Bristol. And yeah, we've worked with, a lot of organisations, Zero West, Bristol Green Capital Partnership, Future Economy Network, etc., some fantastic people, and are, really quite inspiring to me. I think really that's enough. Just to say I've worked with many of the members represented tonight. I am on the BCR committee, Bishopston, Cotham and Redland. I'm a cheese energy tracer and I've enjoyed working with Mike and his team. They are a fantastic, innovative group. Yeah, so at the
And
moment,
that's your 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah, too long. It's all about people. I've been inspired by many of the people I've met in the city, and I look forward to working and representing Ben in the future.
So I guess this was supposed to be a minute each. We were maybe not managing the timing perfectly on that first one. So
Sorry.
I think we're going to have to be a little bit more organised about this. Otherwise, we're going to completely run out of time on this agenda.
That's because Robert is trying to multitask too many things at once.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to time the next one.
Okay, thank you very much, Amelia. And for the rest of you, please forgive me for not timing Robert. So the rest of you will have slightly less time than him, which is a bit mean, but we did say it would be a minute. So anyway, there we go. So Paul Fair, you're second on my list. So can I ask you to come next?
Yep, thank you. Hi, I'm Paul Fair. I've been a BEN director now for 2 years. I was elected on as somebody who was very keen to support the Bristol community energy sector with City Leap, and that's something I've been very much involved in since I started. 12, 13, 15-year background in community energy, working in Scotland, but also with Energy for All in England. And I think what I really see is a great potential for the community energy sector in Bristol, and for the transition to net zero by 2030 is City Leap. So I helped Ben form a coalition of other community energy practitioners in the city, and what we're going to do is put together an organisation that can benefit from City Leap, so that communities can
Timing.
benefit. Okay, that's me. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That's great. Okay, so next person on my list is Faustina, please.
Hi, my name is Faustina, and thank you very much for. I have environmental health background. I have masters in environmental health. I've worked with communities back in Ghana for almost 12 years, trying to build community capacities to gain access to whatever needs, resources that is lacking in those communities. I've worked with Water Aid. I've worked with UNICEF in building capacity of communities. And I've also worked partner with a lot of university, like University of Edinburgh, Cooper Union University, USA. I've worked with Ghana University. And mostly it's about community work and building community capacity. And coming here last year, I attended BEN conference and seeing what BEN have done. I am interested in involving myself with BEN to help to build a capacity of deprived communities in Bristol, and together we'll be able to bring green energy to their doorsteps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Faustina. And Amelia didn't have to stop you, which I guess means that was perfectly timed as well. So that's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, next one is Ben, please.
Hi everyone, my name's Ben. I'm a solicitor at Bevan Britain, where I help organisations feel secure and supported and informed through providing legal advice. I've lived in Bristol for around 10 years. And I've got a strong interest, and I'm trying to gear my practice towards energy and sustainability. So when I took shared parental leave a little while ago, I did a course with the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. In terms of what I think I can bring to the board, I've got good board experience. I've been a trustee with Werburgh City Farm for the last 4 years, so I've seen kind of good governance and good financial management firsthand. In terms of and then I can also bring legal skills to the board as well. So I'm always happy to offer a legal view on any issues that arise. And I know that there's a skills
that's time.
gap. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry to cut you off there, Ben. That was
That's
really
all
tough
right.
too. You
That's
were
okay.
brilliant. All right, Laura.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Laura. I am a born Bristolian. I'm a vocal advocate for empowering individuals and communities to enact positive change, and an avid champion for social equity and energy justice, always ensuring that those who may benefit the most from innovative solutions aren't left behind. I hold a master's in sustainable environmental management and have almost 10 years experience working in sustainability and energy utilities, having worked for Bristol City Council and Bristol Energy Limited. I've recently worked closely with Ben on an Innovate UK project and managed the Thriving Partnership arrangement that Caroline mentioned earlier. I also established Bristol's No Cod Homes Steering Group, which is a collective of organisations working together to alleviate fuel poverty in the city. I'm passionate that local community energy plays a fundamental role in our future energy system, and successful partnerships between local actors and decision makers can truly strengthen communities. I believe that my experience in trusteeship, strategic thinking, energy innovation, change management, and shaping policy can enrich the skills that currently exist in the board of directors and contribute towards.
Okay, that's time.
Thank you.
Oh, Amelia, they were harsh. That's brilliant. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Chris, you're next. And then obviously you're going to get cut off as well if you go over time. So
yeah, here we go. Yeah, it's got to be quick, doesn't it? Yeah. So,
yeah.
hi everybody. I'm Chris Puttick. I'm a senior lecturer at UWE. I've been there for about a year now. Before that, I've had about 17 years experience in as a building services engineer in consultancy. So that's kind of looking at comfort and energy systems in buildings. The last kind of portion of like the last few years, the main focus has been on existing buildings and kind of the energy use within that sector, but also working alongside kind of our smart energy team, looking at microgrids and the delivery of renewable energy systems and storage on site. So I guess with Ben, I think we're in this great opportunity, right? There's so much change happening right now with the energy market, and with opportunities and funding coming through. And hopefully what I'm hoping I can bring is a bit of my experience technically to the team in terms of energy and the delivery of those kind of systems.
Okay, that's the time.
Thank you.
Well done, thank you, Chris. And our final director standing is Mark Leach, who sadly can't be here at the moment because he's not very well. His partner's tested positive for COVID and he's suffering a little bit as well. So I don't know if you've got any of the other current board members who are volunteering to read out his statement. If not, then I can do that. Looks like I'm doing it.
Great.
Okay, I mean, hopefully you've seen what he's written already, but I'll read it out anyway, just to remind you what he said. So Mark's standing for re-election. He's been on the board for the last couple of years and he's been involved with the network in different ways for about 10 years now. So this is what he said in his statement. He says, I've worked in various roles across public, private and charitable sectors. Over a decade in local government has included coordinating the 2015 European Green Capital bid, supporting the Bristol 2015 company, managing the Bristol Green Capital Partnership regeneration projects, planning engagement campaigns, working on climate change policy, land use planning policy, and providing BCC support to Bristol community energy organisations, including Ben and Bristol's Community Strategy for Energy. He says, I'm passionate about the role and unique value of the voluntary sector in all sustainability issues, and particularly for energy. My background includes training and development, community development, and community and stakeholder engagement and consultation, as well as project management, managing change and innovation. In my first 2 years on the board of the Energy Network, I've contributed in a number of ways, including problem solving, providing connections and other advice, in resolving elements of specific projects and support on communications, which indeed he has done. So he's been a great asset to the board over his last couple of years as well. Guys, we have a really tough choice because we've got 7 great people and we've only got 5 spaces. So I hope we choose well. Voting is now open. It will be open for a bit longer now. And I think the plan was to allow you to think about it and to cast your votes. We were just going to have a short period of chat. Now, are we going to do breakout rooms again, Amelia, while we do this?
Yeah, I am going to put you into breakout rooms now. So do join the room and have a chat with somebody.
And we'll do that for about 5 or 10 minutes while people do their voting, and then we'll come back and we'll move on to celebrating the last 10 years and looking forward to the next 10, which is kind of exciting, really, looking backwards and forwards. We're at a really significant point in, 10 years back, 10 years forward. So I hope you'll stick around and join us for that second part of the meeting and the agenda.
Oh, sorry, I haven't opened the rooms. I thought that was happening. It's now open.
Amelia, if you're there.
Stuff we want to talk about, and we're going to go through a quick whiz through of kind of highlights of the last 10 years of Ben before we hear some member stories. So Amelia, you were going to do a screen share so that we've got some slides to talk to, I think.
There we go.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So I think the first slide, which is kind of before Ben even was born, was a bit of the backstory, and I think that's Dave's job to talk to that. We've got, by the way, we've got Robert doing a bit of timekeeping because we've only got a couple of minutes for each of these time periods of our history, so we need to be a bit strict.
I'm going to do this slide, and I think I'm going to introduce Dan alongside me with the beginnings of Ben. So yeah, just before Bristol Energy Network started, the Climate Change Act came in and that had a massive impact in terms of public acceptance of climate change being an issue and is a legally binding act. I won't say too much about the 2009 failure of climate change negotiations in 2009, but I think it was partly to do with the crash that we had just had, and so there was a big hiatus there. But then so here in Bristol, Green Capital Partnership forming in Bristol, I remember we're going to the 2009 Centre for Sustainable Energy first birthday in 2009, and the peak oil report coming out at the same time. And at the time, the transition movement forming and being very active, and I was involved with some of those initial meetings with Rob Hopkins, and that was where I was really moved, really, because I went to a meeting about engineering in the future, which I thought I'd better go to because I was working for an engineering consultancy, and it was Rob Hopkins presenting, and it really became clear to me that we don't need to be talking about climate change any longer in the sense that the Climate Change Act has been announced. People are aware of climate change. What do they do about it? And it kind of struck me that I did have skills that I could offer my community to do something about this. And that's where I contacted my friend Paul Adams, who was doing a PhD with Bath University at the time on life cycle analysis. And I was an air quality scientist at Parsons Brinkhoff. And I said, this is our responsibility, you know, this climate change issue. We're living in a community with high levels of fuel poverty. We should use our skills, not just in our international clients that we work for, but also what can we offer at our local level. And he said, good, that's a good idea. I'll find one friend and you find another friend, and we'll start a group. And we because there was already a lot of activity elsewhere on food and other we thought we wanted to focus on our own skill sets, and we focused on energy solutions. So cue Dan. Do you want to say something, Dan Narenyanin, about?
Thanks. Yeah. I'll try and keep it as quick as I can. And I just said hello to the people in my little breakout group and gave a little bit of a teaser. But yeah, thanks, Dave. And so I guess following on from what you said, and hello to everyone that I haven't seen for a long time. It's lovely to see your faces. Sorry that I've been so absent. So I was in touch with Paul regularly, and I'm a building services engineer, and I've been working now in carbon and energy management for about 13 years. So at the time I was kind of near the beginning, or a lot earlier than that, doing a master's, and as Dave said, learning a lot of technical stuff that really, as soon as Paul and Dave came forward, I was like, yeah, I've got something that I could offer here, and there's some useful stuff that people should be knowing and learning and applying at home. So forming the Eastern Energy Group was a natural step, really. And from that, we were trying to engage with homeowners, trying to find ways of reaching out to the different members in the community. We came across other energy groups in the city that were kind of forming at the time, and Dave, you'll remember all the names of them better than I will. So forming the network seemed like again another logical step. We developed stuff that we didn't want other people to have to develop. Other stuff had done stuff that we could steal, and so it was just about trying to get people together and trying to get the this idea of bringing together not just other community groups, but also people who had no knowledge of what they were doing, just homeowners or individuals, but also trying to link in with council and with other local businesses, bigger organisations, anyone really who could offer anything. And I won't go into too much more detail because I know we're short on time. But it's such a pleasure to come in and see all these faces, all the numbers of people that I know are involved, and what a great thing that's happening. And,
what I would say is, like any good project, there was an we actually started discussing and setting. We actually got our constitution of Ben in 2009 that Dan, Paul, and Inigo, myself pulled together, and it was actually 2010 October, the day. That just after the this year's Ben meeting as well, so we've actually pretty much
we've almost hit the nail on the head.
We always hit the nail on the head. Very much really hit the nail on the head. But I think is it time to hand it? So yeah, so that incubation and those conversations led to fruitful projects. We connected up to create the connections for Green Doors and support that to happen, and Bristol Energy Cooperative support.
And the strategy as well emerged from this.
Exactly. So there's so much that has really happened, but it's happened because we've collaborated and worked together. We've got a shared.
Can I wrap you up, Dave?
Yeah. Okay, no, that's it. So I let others speak for it because it will naturally.
Can I grab the mic from you, Dave?
Go for it. I'm passing over to Jake. Yeah, so Dan went travelling. That was the other thing. And then he had another. I said he can't leave.
Hand over, Dave. Hand over.
Had to hand over to Jake, and so Jake got involved. Yeah.
Some things haven't changed in 10 years. But what Dave and Dan are showing is that there was a lot going on in the 2009, 2010 period. Lots of groups forming, and out of that, everyone came together as part of the network. So I'm kind of picking up here at the end of this the emergence, and the big thing that happened in end of 2011 was local energy assessment funds, which the government announced at short notice, super short turnaround, but we had a huge impact with in Bristol. And I would like to think that was largely because I think it might have been Bridget from CSE that noticed it first of all, but we managed to get it around to everyone really quickly. And that was sort of the essence of the network, supporting each other and sharing information. And so Ben and CSE were able to support groups to different extents, but allowed this huge flourishing of LEAF projects. And I think all the groups that participated found it incredibly challenging and nerve-wracking.
Local energy efficiency fund, yeah, sorry.
Efficiency, sorry, Dave. So that was 2012. Then we held our first larger event, which was the Community Energy Forum in the Big Top next to the station, which many of you will remember. If we move on to the next slide, this is where I think of it as Ben's consolidation years. There was lots going on and it started to get a bit more serious. Essentially, it was lots of us meeting in the pub and good things were happening. The primary bit of consolidation there, everyone will remember, was developing the Bristol Community Strategy for Energy. And this I remain staunchly proud of. A huge feat. And it really, to my mind, brought us all together. So it emerged as an idea. And I think Amelia might have been a key champion of the idea back in the time.
Can I just come in on that bit, Jake? So how that came about, the strategy was after the conference we held in 2012. It was, what do we do next? And Bridget may be able to tell her the story herself because she's just coming in, because it was actually Bridget who actually initiated that. So I don't know if she's able just to.
Dave, as chair, can I suggest you don't interrupt too much because it's kind of.
No, I just wanted to just just say that Bridget was the one that suggested that we pulled a strategy together and that we all got behind that idea. So, yeah.
I think there was probably lots of origins, and my point is that everyone got together. It was a very collective effort, very bottom up, lots of people putting in lots of effort. I think there were 3 workshops, and it was incredibly detailed, and it produced this onion or wheel, and it got recognition both locally by the council and our partners, but also later on within the national strategy. The small addition to that is that we then later got constituted as a company, which meant in many respects that things got a bit more real. And it's worth saying here that the City Council were hugely important in the run up through all these years, but also in pushing us to get constituted and providing funds, another small grant here for our first coordinator. So I'd just flag Mark Leach for his historic role back in that period, and also Bridget Newbury. Mark, you mentioning she's here. I'm not sure she is. At least she indicated she wouldn't be. She sent in this, and Bridget, do stop me if you are here, reflections and how to make a Ben cake, which I think sums up at least certainly the origins and hopefully its continuing ethos. So
Bridget is here actually, so maybe she could talk to this herself. Bridget, do you want to say anything?
I could do. Hang on, let me find. I need to find where I wrote it out the other day. Lovely to see everybody, by the way. Very lovely indeed. Sorry, Jake.
You carry on, Bridget. It's great to see you.
Actually, you carry on for a minute, and I'll find where I wrote that recipe down. I thought I was going to miss you.
So we've got this on the screen in front of us, Bridget, the sort of reflection.
Oh, you have already?
Yes. So it's on the screen share, yes, with a wooden spoon.
Hang on, I get rid of all the faces. I wanted to see all of you. Yes, it is that one. Oh, great, sorry. I'm way behind. Right, I'm just going to read this out for you then. How to make a Ben cake. Take a very special city, and I'm allowed to say this because I was born here, but it would be special even if I hadn't been. Bristol. Combine good people, good ideas, and lots of goodwill. Mix well using lots of conversations and emails and network meetings, big and small and in the pub, for amazing results. Bake up with some research, lots of enthusiasm, and a tiny bit of support, but mainly the enthusiasm. And for even more stupendous results, leave for 10 years, mix it up some more, add more people, more ideas, more goodwill, and then look at what everyone has done, and it really is amazing.
Bridget, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. That's fab. And really lovely to see you as well. We haven't seen you for ages. So
no, it's been too long.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Jake, did you want to say any more on your sort of bit before we move on to the Green Capital Year? Because it's great to have Jerome with us, who plays such an important part in what we managed to achieve through the Green Capital Year. Maybe Jerome, I can hand over to you, and you're very welcome. It's nice to see you too.
Very nice to see everybody, and very, happy birthday and congratulations on the thriving and the new faces as well as the old faces. I mean, I think Green Capital Year was a great way to build on the work that had already taken place with a bit of extra resourcing, and with the eyes of the city on sort of green issues, and we had the opportunity to focus it on green energy as well. I think there were 3 strands particularly to the energy and green energy in Bristol in 2015. One was that there was funding from projects in Green Capital Year. So the Cheese thermal imaging project got funding. There was extensive training of energy champions with CSE, and then there was the solar tree of sort of from demand energy equality, which you can see there, which was iconic and symbolic. Then we organised a series of public engagement events. So Molly Scott Cato talking about energy planning for the whole of the South West, People like Andrew Garrard talks about tidal lagoons, and then talks about the sort of the holistic approach of one planet living and how energy feeds across these different areas. And then it was just an opportunity for joint working and collaboration in that more resourced way between the different community groups in the city and then across the different sectors in the city. So thinking in that joined up way between housing, transport, energy, etc., which is what we really need to move towards that, our sustainable vision for the future.
Jerome, thank you. That's great. Really nice to see you, and thank you so much for your part in that that year, or even that couple of years, in fact, the Energy Action Group. Then, Martin, you said you wanted to say something about the strategy. If you can do something really brief, that would be great. Otherwise, we probably need to move on. Martin Fodor.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was trying to hunt for a slide that was from that one of those workshops in Brunswick Square, and I couldn't find it, because to me it was the formative kind of concept being crystallized, which was so brilliantly put into the cartwheel, as I call it, the diagram that was put up earlier. It was because there were so many people interested in energy and interested in making things happen, but some of them, I think, thought we were going to write the strategy for the city for energy. And what I remember was putting a couple of slides up on the screen and saying, all the things that could happen in energy, we're not the ones who should write the strategy. That's the council's job, or the government's job, or whatever. And what the strategy is a community strategy for energy. And I said, the strategy will have all those things around the cartwheel. It'll have giving advice, installing things, getting the work out of things, investing in things, building things, connecting things. But they could either be done with more community control, ownership, shareholding, benefits, or with fewer benefits. You could fly in a group of energy advisors from somewhere else in a coach and go down the street and give advice. But if we do it, if it's part of our community strategy for energy, we give the advice, our neighbours share advice, we have energy champions. And that was the difference between an energy strategy and a community strategy for energy. And I'm sorry I couldn't find the slide anymore that showed me showing the diagram about that.
That's great, thank you, Martin. That's really helpful, and you're absolutely right. That was exactly what we tried to do. And actually, we were the first place in the country to produce a strategy like that as well, even before the government did theirs. So I think we should be really proud of that too. I'm going to skip over the next few years, the sort of more recent years, and I think they're the years that I've been chairing the network as well. I can't remember exactly when I started chairing it, but I guess I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now. So I'm going to quickly talk through some of the stuff that we've been doing more recently. And I guess this is really a kind of consolidation period, if you like. We've been working with the City Council, we've been working on some quite substantial funded projects. And what we really managed to do in the last few years is engage more communities and more different communities. So we're not just a network of community energy organizations any longer. We're actually a network of communities thinking about and doing something for energy. And I think that's quite a significant difference for us over the last few years, and it's made it much more interesting, and hopefully we've become a little bit more diverse. We've reached a few people that we would never have reached otherwise. We just talked about ourselves as being community energy organizations. And one of the ways we managed to do that was through the Bristol Community Energy Fund. And that was part of the Community Energy Best Practice Project, which was funded by DEC. The City Council managed to secure quite a decent chunk of money to do this project. And as Bristol Energy Network and with our members, we helped them to shape what that project looked like, helped to make sure that there was enough money coming to the different community groups and helping them to do energy. And it also funded an additional post for us, an outreach post. Tando had that post for a year, and she managed to reach communities that we hadn't reached before and help them to put together applications to the Community Energy Fund. And we made sure that the panel assessing the applications to that fund, again, was representative and diverse, so that the fund was easy to apply to, we helped people to apply to it, and that, again, helped to bring in lots of different organizations to think about energy and to reach people across the city. After that, we had some more funding, again, working with the City Council and others to do the Replicate project, the BEST project, which I think we mentioned earlier on, and to put together the toolkit, which we launched this year. In all of these projects, again, we've been kind of honing our engagement approach, and we've been working with more and more different community organisations across the city to engage them in thinking about energy, to help them work out what's important for them and for their communities, because each community has its own needs, and you know, one size doesn't fit all, but we can share stuff and we can learn from each other, and we can use some of the approaches that have been developed with different communities across the city. What do we do after that? So yeah, now we're in 2020. Again, we have another European funded project, the Sonnet project, which again I mentioned earlier on, which is taking a different approach. We're working with communities in their buildings this time. You know, buildings as community hubs are quite an important place for a lot of communities. So how do we fund them to do good energy work and to be a hub of interesting energy efficiency and advice for their communities? The other projects on here we've already mentioned, so I won't go into that. That's too quick, Amelia. I can't even remember what that slide said now. Okay, so like I said, COVID-19, it changes the way we work, but it hasn't stopped us. So this is, you know, where we are now. And again, I think I mentioned the Energy Champions and Volunteers earlier on as well, so I won't say anything more about those. Amelia, now can I have the next slide, please? We've had 2 really successful conferences. We worked with the university and with school strikers to support the global climate strike. We've done loads of other events and engagement over the years. Back in 2012, we had that first major conference that Jake talked about. We've taken all sorts of displays and stands to all sorts of different communities. I think Dave at one point during the Community Energy Best Practice Project was taking stands to outside supermarkets and that kind of thing. So again, reaching different audiences and spreading our reach around the city and doing what we do best. Next slide. So I guess that's a really quick summary of stuff that we've done over the last 10 years. So, you know, there are a few firsts in there. We were the first UK community strategy for energy. We were the first European Green Capital City in the UK, and in fact, a first and only, I guess, now. And in 2018, I think, rather than 2019, Bristol City Council was the first UK council to make a climate emergency declaration. So we should be pretty proud of our city. As Bridget said, you know, we've got a great city and we've got some great people in it. So, you know, I think we're doing really well, and we're doing really well as a network in kind of the things that we're achieving now. I think the other thing that we wanted to show just quickly was some of the people that have been involved in the network. This isn't all of them, but that's a snapshot of the staff who've worked for the network and some of the people who have served on the board of the network and have helped us to get to where we are now. Thank you, everybody. You've been amazing, actually. And now I think what we want to do next is to move on to some member stories from different member groups and some of their reflections and memories over the last 10 years. Really to recognise everything that everybody's been doing over the last few years. I guess each group has their own memories and their own stories, so this is their space in this meeting. That might be Mike, I think. I'm hoping that you'll unmute yourselves and talk to your slide as it comes up. So,
hi everybody. We've survived for 5 years. Started with Jerome's help and Green Capital, got some little tiny grants. We seem to have continued on little tiny grants ever since, and money has always been hard to get. But we've surveyed over 400 houses in Bristol and had just started up in Bath when the COVID hit us and we had to stop. We're still working hard in the meantime because we have in the wings, but it's still confidential, an opportunity to get some substantial funding for 3 years in order to expand UK-wide. More on that, we hope, within a couple of months. Very grateful for the support we had from Ben at the beginning, and indeed from others like CSE, where we've worked with Future Proof and generally bringing the news about what people can do to save energy in their own homes, where you use a third of all the energy you do use. We reckon you can cut that down by a third just by draft proofing for 100 quid. We're not talking about these major refits, which cost 25,000, which is what the government talks about, and we still can't get the message across to them. Start with the thermal image, gives you the ground truth, and it gets you the biggest bang for your buck.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. We're going to have to be a little bit strict on these 1 minute, one slide things, because we are actually running slightly behind time on our agenda. But Mike, that was great. I mean, Cheese Project is such a good thing, and you know, such a nice way of showing what really goes on and helping people to make changes. Who's next on the member memories? Owen Square.
Hi there. It's Damon speaking now. Yeah, the Owen Square project. Squeeze it into 1 minute. So what we've got here, Eastern Community Centre in Eastern, obviously. This is a project that was about hyper-local energy transition. It began really with Eastern Energy Group in 2009. Dan's on the call. Did a very extensive energy survey of the building. From there, a number of sort of simpler projects like radiator, TRV, mods got made to the building. Bristol Energy came in, and Bristol Energy Co-op came in and put the solar panels on, the first half of solar panels on the building. And then we said, well, what can we do next? And we decided to get rid of gas heating from the building and install a ground source heating system in the park. And in 2016, we secured some funding from
Okay, time is up. I'm sorry, that's the 1 minute.
Cool, thanks.
Hello. So yeah, Bedminster Energy Group, recently renamed as BS3 Energy Group. So this, I was looking at some funding applications recently, and we were funded, well, started 10 years ago. So similar to Ben's anniversary. The first major project was the LEAF project, I think, but well before I was involved. I started getting involved in sort of 2017, 2018, when Beg was doing a lot of sort of talks and films that were really well attended at the tobacco factory. And since then, we've done a few sort of engagement events building on the work done from the LEAF project. So doing some door knocking and trying to understand the needs of the community, and sort of offering then materials and workshops that are tailored to the feedback.
Out of time.
All right, thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
this was really mean that we're cutting
Harsh,
everybody
I
off
know, but we
completely.
just want to have everyone's stories.
Right. Hello. Yes. My name's Dorian. I'm the secretary for both Clifton Climate Action and the Bishopston, Cottam and Redland Energy Group. Clifton Climate Action only got started last summer, about 1.5 years ago. BCR's been going a lot longer. And actually, the first thing I should say, which I didn't include on the slide, is that the biggest change that has taken place in either of these groups over the last year or so is the very sad passing of Sue Nichols. Many of you will be familiar with her. She was, I believe, began the organisation and ran it for a very long time, but she brought myself and Nikki Jones and a couple of other people in to run it last year. She sadly passed, I think, at the end of November last year. So I just wanted to mention that. Since lockdown, the two groups have been collaborating on a series of online talks. We've got some up there. We've got 2 fantastic websites, which are full of local and green resources. And we've been doing lots of other little projects. So we've got is that my time?
That's your time.
Well, they're on the screen. You can read them for yourselves.
Oh, I feel really mean.
2 groups to mention and in loving memory bit to do, and you still gave me the same amount of time. Cruel, or whatever.
Very cruel. It's a very cruel system. Oh,
Hey there. I'm going to talk fast and not leave any pauses. So my name is Vicky and I work in Rework in Null West. We're part of the Null West Alliance, And we've been involved with Bristol Energy Network since I think it was called the Incredibly Challengingly Timelined Leaf Project. And my predecessor, who's also in the virtual room with us, wave Iris, is there demonstrating the fact that basically we're an organisation that behaves like children. We had a lot of paper cuts that day. So we have been doing lots and lots and lots of things around improving people's relationship with their home and energy across Norwest. I did ask two of my colleagues who are both cheese surveyors if they could think of an instance which was like an Bristol Energy Network instance, but they couldn't. What they said is that, you know, what Bristol Energy Network is helping push is that slow grind to get people to understand that change is necessary and that change is in their hands. And to paraphrase a colleague of mine, it wasn't what my thought, but it was a very nice one. She said that in an increasingly polarized world, that collaboration is a radical act, and Bristol Energy Network is phenomenally good at facilitating that.
Yes. Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. That was perfect. Well done.
So this is Roger, I think.
Best unmute. Okay. My awareness and interest in community energy was fired before I came into contact with Ben by a talk given by Amelia Melville, then a director of Beck, and Dan Quiggin as part of the Bristol Festival of Ideas, I believe, around 2012 in the Create Centre. My interest in community energy continued to be sustained by coming across Ben. I can't remember quite how, but his activity in Bristol, especially around Easton, and his championing of residents' energy issues, particularly with BCC Warm Up Bristol. Other examples of communities tackling fuel poverty. The BEC itself, Bristol Energy Cooperative, CSE, David Saunders and his Bristol Power Cooperative, and they all fed into us in Lawrence Weston, where we were writing our community plan.
Oh, I'm afraid you're about to run out of time.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'll give you one more sentence. One more sentence.
Okay. Well, it all built into the belief and reality that we could build a wind turbine for the community to tackle fuel poverty, and last month it gained a full planning permission, and that's where we're going.
Brilliant, thank you, Roger, and what a great achievement. Yeah, that's fabulous. So the next bit of the agenda, and I'm really sorry if we cut you all off a little bit quickly there, but I guess we're trying to cram loads of things into this agenda. It feels like we've got so much to talk about, and we do want to have a bit of time for breakout groups as well. So the next 10 years, we've got a few summary slides and introductions before we go into the next set of breakout groups. Now, in theory, we've got a couple of minutes for each of these next bits, but guys, if you can do it a bit quicker. So Rebecca, Robert, Khan and Paul, if you can talk a little bit less than 2 minutes on each of these, that would be amazing. Then we have a bit more time to talk to each other next. So I think the next slide is to do with policy and how that influences what we do. Rebecca, you were going to give us a little bit of an introduction here, please.
Yeah, I'll try and keep this really brief. Basically, over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of policy changes, and we ideally need to be in a position where we are influencing that policy to have the most beneficial impact and to make our projects as easy as possible. So that will involve influencing policy at a range of scales. In Bristol, on both kind of planning policies and the one city policies. Regionally, seeing what WECA's doing, and nationally with policies such as national planning policy changes. So we've got a couple of Bristol University intern students at the moment starting to look at this for us. And this is something we're going to try and develop further, putting together kind of more of a strategy of the policy consultations we want to respond to. Okay.
Brilliant, that's great. Thank you, Rebecca. And yeah, great to have some students working with us on some of this stuff as well. It's something we always meant to do, and I think we're doing it a bit better now, so that's fab. Okay, who's doing this next bit?
So I can start with this, and then Robert can will come in. Okay. So yeah, we did a piece at the start of the year looking at our strategy. Can we go to the next slide, please? Great, thanks. So yeah, given the sort of all the different 2030 visions coming out, city strategies coming out, different organizations looking at 2030 targets, we thought, you know, we've had 10 years, what are the next 10 years going to look like as for us as an organization and for our members and for the community energy scene? So recognizing that there needs to be a balance between our activity, our members' activity, and how we influence development of a community energy vision in the city. The directors got together at the start of the year and sort of looked at where we go next, developing vision, etc. And next slide, so Robert can talk about some of that work. Robert, do you want to do that?
Yeah, sorry, muted, talking to myself. Yeah, so the BEN board is now in a position looking forward to the next 10 years. Effectively, we're trying to attempt to identify the network's longer term vision. You can see some of the visions that we're considering. I'll allow you to look at the screen, read through those. But essentially, BEN needs to align its membership and its activities with these goals. They are at an early stage of development, and they're not, you know, inclusive. This will require communication, coordination, partnership, and collaboration with network and other city partners.
That's your joint 2 minutes up.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Paul, you were going to fit City Leap into there as well in terms of how that influences what we do next before we move into some group activity. I hope. Paul, are you still with us?
I think Paul's muted. I can see him trying to talk. Oh, Paul is having a sound issue. He's there, he's unmuted, he's speaking, and we can't hear him. That's very sad.
That is very sad.
Okay, should we let's invite Paul to come back later in the meeting?
Yes,
that would work.
I mean, we can maybe just spend a couple of seconds having a quick look at this and the kind of development of the community approaches to engaging with City Leap that he and others have been developing. But yes, I think if we come back to this later on, maybe he can sort out his sound issues, and we go on to the next bit now.
Okay. Oh, let me put my video back on. Hi. So the next thing we want to do is to give you a chance to talk to each other about the next 10 years of Bristol Energy Network. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms in a minute, and hopefully in each of those breakout rooms there's going to be somebody who is there as the keynote listener, and these are people who are have quite a good understanding of the context in various different roles, and who will feed back at the end from what the discussion was like in the breakout rooms. And during that time, we're going to finalize the counting of the votes. So in each of the breakout rooms, the questions to look at, and I'll put these in the chat as well so that you have them as reference, are: what can we learn from the history of the last 10 years as a signpost for the next 10 years? How can Bristol Energy Network support you in contributing to Bristol's climate emergency objectives, which is to get to zero carbon by 2030? what do you see as the greatest strength in Ben's foundation? So the stories that we've heard really tell us how much of a solid foundation we've got now and how far we've come in 10 years. How far could we get in the next 10 years? Things could really shift. And then also kind of invitation to some critical reflection. How does Ben need to change so that it can continue to develop and have a positive impact in the city? So these are really just prompts for discussion, and just thinking in that kind of 10-year timescale about the future of the Bristol Energy Network, and you as a member, someone who's interested, as someone representing a member group, how that kind of relates to you. So I'm going to stop talking and do the admin on the breakout rooms, and back to Caroline whilst I do that admin.
We're trying to bring the agenda back roughly to where we should be. We really want to hear from our keynote listeners. Before we wrap up, we do want to end promptly at 8. We kind of recognise that this is our last night of freedom, so some of you might want to be doing something else for the next couple of hours. Thank you to the people who we asked to be keynote listeners. We're very grateful to your participation in this meeting, and we'd like to invite you to give some brief feedbacks from your perspectives in your breakout groups. I'm going to go by group numbers. So the first group was the group that Afzal was in. So Afzal, are you up for giving us some feedback from your group and your strategic?
I absolutely am, yeah. I'm just trying to get my camera to work, sorry, just yeah. Just one moment. When you've got 2 young children at home chasing you from room to room, you have to think on your feet. So yeah. Just one moment, sorry. Let's get the camera.
Do you want me to go to the next person and come back to you while you're sorting that out? No, there you are, brilliant. We can see you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, would you mind going to the next person, sorry, while I just...
Sure, okay, I'll do that. Alex Minshall, you were group number 2, I think. Could you maybe do your feedback first, please?
Oh, yeah, Karen, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, let me just, I'll put the camera on. So my internet's a little unstable. So so we had quite a discussion, and so the only thing I wrote down was something that I said we might, and colleagues can jump in, but we might have got sort of 5 S's that might describe the kind of the role of Ben going forward. And one of those is about supporting the members and sharing and working collective. Sorry, that's supporting that kind of as much moral support and kind of emotional support, so that people can tackle the rather substantial challenges that we face more effectively. There's something about then sharing, which is a bit more about kind of sharing knowledge, learning experiences, mistakes, so that people can do things more quickly and more effectively. Something about signposting to opportunities and challenges that people can then accelerate the rate of their progress. Being strategic and linking in with the strategies of the city and more broadly, so that it's not just a collection of projects and the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And finally, we talked a bit about scaling up activities and helping members scale up their activities, both in same connection with the City Leap and other kind of projects like that, but ensuring that we don't lose the connectivity to the grassroots and to the community, which is the kind of crucial bit of the DNA of Ben and its member organisations. So I don't.
Great, that's perfect. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, that's great. That's really helpful. Nice to see you as well, by the way. Afzal, come back to you now. Are you sorted?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Caroline. Can I just begin by commenting on Martin's background? I think it's great, Martin, and I wish I had that background.
There was a sunrise from a window a few weeks ago.
Oh, fantastic. So what can we learn from Ben's last 10 years for the next 10? So there's huge potential to unlock in terms of social capital and the members that we've got within the city. There's also a huge impact for decarbonisation. We also spoke about community ownership and empowerment, actually empowering communities, understanding what we can actually do, what is actually possible when it comes to the ownership of energy. And a great example of that is Ambition Lawrence Western. I think, you know, we're all in awe of what's been achieved there, and I'm sure that will really inspire us to actually do a lot more. Building strategic relationships for collaboration with key partners. So whether that's in the public sector, in the private sector, third sector organizations, a lot of potential there. And also just appreciating the social capital that we've got within the city. And I know that Alex has mentioned scaling up. And then moving on to the second question, how can Ben support you in contributing to Bristol's climate and climate emergency objectives? So facilitating a voice, ensuring that the community voice is there right from the beginning. It's not halfway through or towards the end. You know, that really is critical, having that voice at the table. Breaking down the technical jargon. A lot of people are actually put off by the technical jargon around this, and actually, if you speak to general members of the public, or even people who have some understanding, if you ask them about City Leap, they can find it quite intimidating in terms of some of the language around that. So actually breaking that down to have more buy-in.
Asal, I might chivvy you along a little bit here, because like I said, I'm quite keen that we finish fairly promptly. So maybe
Yeah,
a couple of
so the last one was around connectivity, and also about making climate change relevant to people's day-to-day lives, and just tapping into the huge potential that we've got in the city. But connectivity really is important. So having mingles, keeping each other connected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which is, you know, of course, harder at the moment, but you're so right. You know, keeping each other connected is such an important thing to be doing. That's great. Thank you, Asal. Keith, I think you're next. If you actually managed to get into your room finally.
Yeah, I eventually managed to join group 3, and we had a good conversation. So I haven't sort of responded directly to each of the questions, but just share some of the main things that we discussed. So I think in terms of the context, there was a really strong feeling that there's lots to do, and for, you know, some members that feels quite overwhelming in the next decade, and that quite often groups spend a lot of time thinking about what they should do. So there was a question of, you know, how Ben can help to sort of guide that in terms of what groups could be doing, should be doing, and the conversation sort of came out of sort of a definition of what we mean by sort of community energy. There was sort of a recognition that there's a need for a really strong external narrative about Ben and what it is that we do as a network. There was, so a couple of people in the group were quite new and really saw the value in Ben as sort of connecting, as being a place that sort of connects people and brings them together. But also, I think it could be quite challenging for some people. It takes a while to sort of find out who they need to go for what different information. So I don't know if it's more of a sort of directory, make it easier to sort of navigate those paths and build those relationships. And yeah, feeling that quite a lot's happening, and sometimes it feels like really exciting sort of big scale projects like the Lawrence Western wind turbine, but also then sometimes it's very simple things. So it's sort of like how Ben works across all of those scales and connects people working around those. Really important to continue the good work that Ben's been doing around diversity and engagement. And yeah, I think we ended just by talking about sort of Ben's role as sort of an umbrella organization for different groups within the city, as well as being sort of an actor in itself. So it's always been a slight challenge there.
Great, thanks, Keith. That's fab. Iris, so we've got 2 more. We've got Iris, and then we've got Jake, and then hopefully we've got time for a little bit of stuff from Paul before we announce the results of the director election. So Iris, you're next, please.
Yes, hi everybody. So we tried to have a look at the questions. I'm not sure we entirely managed to get the answers up, set out to do. But we first of all looked at the fact that we think that everything is changing all the time, and that Ben is actually very good at looking at what is changing, how it's changing, and that everything that we thought we were doing 10 years ago isn't necessarily the same. It's sort of the same direction, but the aims, the way it's happening, what the priorities were in politics is all changing all the time. And with that in mind, we said that actually we should have a lot of confidence as Ben in what we're doing and not necessarily looking sideways all the time. And that has probably been proven as well with doing what we think we should be doing. I don't think that, for example, Lawrence Weston would have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
So, and with that in mind, we then talked about the fact that there's obviously the big aim of becoming carbon neutral being the big aim, and timing attached to that, and exponential growth being something that's necessary to achieve something, but how do we fit into that? And, you know, how can Ben support that process of growth and exponential growth? And one of the things was that joint delivery of things, and I think David used the door knocking analogy, not knocking 3 times but only once on people's doors, because actually they're all connected projects, and to try and replicate and make sure that things are rolled out not just in one place, but if somebody has developed something, to be much more proactive in working together, making sure that people work together, and making that the strength of the network. And what it actually means to network is to make sure we deliver together.
Yeah. Iris, I might cut you off there actually, because we are going to slightly run out of time. So if you've got another final wrapping up sentence, that would be fab.
Yep. Become more diverse and to make sure that we involve people who don't want to go to meetings, and using the new COVID network that has emerged as part of that.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you, Iris. Jake,
Wow.
I'm going to ask if you can do this really quickly, because
Yeah,
I'd like to try and finish more or less on time.
I feel somewhat under pressure after Iris's profound group thoughts. But it links nicely because we spent most of our time talking about engagement, engaging people, and how in the next 10 years we nearly have to continue pushing out to try and engage more, and the focus needs to be on leaving no one behind. So Richard kicked off that discussion, and I think it's a valid point. Our reflection overall was that this is possibly the strength of Ben, and we need to realise it, and that over the last 10 years we've to a large extent relied on people coming forwards, and that was fair enough in the early days. So kind of a group of like-minded people that have all stepped forwards to do things, but the emphasis needs to shift in the next 10 years towards engaging everyone. Yep. And so it needs a slight change of thinking.
Brilliant. I can't remember that feels like a good place to stop, actually, if you don't mind, Jake.
That's fine.
Sorry to cut you off, but I'd like to just pull all this together. I think there's some really good reflections there from everybody on, you know, what we're doing and how we can do maybe more of what we're doing. We can scale up and we can draw it all together. I'm going to bring Paul back in because he didn't manage to do his slot earlier on. If I can try and get him in for just 1 minute, it's a very quick summary of where we're at with City Leap. I think that would be really helpful. Paul, are you with us?
Yeah, you can hear me, everyone? Yes?
Yep.
Great. Okay, quickly then. I mentioned City Leap earlier, just to say what the plans are from here on, really. So this is where we're trying to get Ben and a consortium of local partners to really get the benefit of working with City Leap. So trying to help Bristol transition to net zero by 2030. So what we're trying to do is create a service, an agent, if you like, that's going to help communities deliver their own community energy projects or carbon reduction projects. This diagram here pretty much represents how we'd like to do it. So there'll either be projects that communities can take forward themselves, or there'll be City Leap projects that people can invest in, and then there'll be a fund that Bristol citizens can deliver their projects. So the whole procurement exercise to find a development partner is currently going on. What we're doing as a consortium now is bringing together some sort of plan, a proposal that we can then take to the final bidders of City Leap. So there's going to be 3 bidders that the council is going to look to engage with, and out of those 3 they'll find the one. Hopefully that one will choose our proposal to help deliver their social value as part of their bid. I don't really need to say any more than that. Just keep an eye out for it. But what I am going to do is I am going to try and put a link into the chat there so that everyone can see. What we'd really like is your feedback, Ben members, to say how they would engage with our proposal. So if you can all see that link in the chat there, please go to that form, fill it out for us. That would be great. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Paul. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, drum roll, we should have the results of the director elections. Jenny, I'm hoping that you can do that announcement for us, please.
Yes, I can. Just bear with me 1 sec. And I'm just going to double check that nothing else is refreshing. The moment you've all been waiting for. Okay, I am ready to read the results in no particular order. The 5 directors that are that have been elected today to the Ben board are Mark, Paul, Robert, Faustina, and Laura.
Woohoo!
So well done, everybody.
And let everybody unmute and give them all a big cheer simultaneously.
So I look forward to welcoming the new board members to the board and welcoming back the 3 who have been re-elected. The people who weren't elected this time, we had such a good field of candidates of people who wanted to work with us and help us. So the people who weren't elected, I really hope that if we can find another way of working with you, so we can value the skills and the knowledge that you wanted to bring to us. We'll be in touch separately about that, I think, after we've had our board meeting next week. To the people who have been elected onto the board, we are hoping to have a board meeting next week. That will be organised shortly. I hope you can join that. It will be slightly weird welcoming new board members to a virtual board meeting, but unfortunately that's what we've got to do, but hopefully we can make that all work. Finally, just to say that I've been chairing the board for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure exactly how long it is. I'm stepping back as chair, so at next week's board meeting we'll be deciding who takes on that role for the future. I'd like to say thank you all very much for being at this meeting. It's been lovely to see you all, particularly actually the people who have been around since the beginning of Ben. It's been really nice to celebrate the last 10 years.
And thank you, Caroline, who's also been looking after the staff and doing a really amazing job of doing that. So we'll miss you. In that
We
role.
will miss you.
Thanks, Caroline.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Caroline, for all your hard work, and to everyone that's got it to this point. Thank you.
Right, well, thank you all very much, everybody. Nice to see you all, and enjoy the rest of your last evening of freedom before we lock down for next month.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Ben, and all those at the core of it. Thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you, Martin.
everybody. Well done.
Bye now.